The more you think about this and you think about yourself and your own psychology, you'll realize it's true. If you want to do something, you will find some way to justify it. If you feel strongly about something, the intellect will follow along and explain why it's right that you feel this way. Okay, so he continues, reason is not a balloon floating loose in the air of truth. It is the leaves of a tree that lives from its trunk, the heart, and its roots in the earth, its feelings. If psychology has learned anything since Plato, it has learned that, and so has Pascal long before Freud. All right, that's probably the key insight. And then I'll leave you with this, because if you've read it before, undoubtedly it was puzzling to you. Maybe you got resolved, maybe you didn't. But let's do this as kind of our cliffhanger. Maybe we'll get through it, who knows. But we have this next of the Pensées 298. And again, these are aphorisms, in some cases scattered notes, so that's why it just begins with order and continues, against the objection that there is no order in Scripture. The heart has its order, the mind has its own, which uses principles and demonstrations. The heart has a different one, namely a different order. So that is, the mind drinks in principles and demonstrations, the heart something else. We do not prove that we ought to be loved by setting out in order the causes of love. That would be absurd. So the heart and its desire to be loved doesn't go out looking for but philosophically, let's define love. And what are the different components of love? The heart isn't interested in that at all. Give me a hug, give me a kiss, tell me you love me. That's what the heart wants, right? Okay, so it has a different order than the mind. All right, here's this point that's going to strike ears as controversial. I think I agree with him for the most part. Jesus Christ and St. Paul possess the order of charity. Now that means the charity being love, caritas, and that being intimately connected with the heart. So notice what he's saying then in the context of his own words. Jesus Christ and St. Paul possess the order of charity. That is, in their words and in their deeds, they are speaking to the heart, not of the mind. Okay, so in other words, in Jesus and in Paul, you don't so much find proofs for the existence of God or classical demonstrations or defenses that would appeal to the intellect as if the intellect were the main thing. Rather, you find what we would call a preaching of law and gospel, that which strikes at the heart and the human condition. The intellectual stuff is secondary. The primary stuff is the heart. Okay, so that's the assertion made by Pascal. Then he says, for they, Christ and Paul, wished to humble, not to teach. Now immediately you're going to balk at that because Christ is the teacher, but just continue to use the same frame, that it is through humility of heart that they are speaking to hearts, not by the teaching of intellectual principles that they are trying to convert people who are intellectually convertible. So Pascal continues, the same with St. Augustine. So he's lumping Augustine in with Paul and Christ as those who speak to the heart and do so in humility and integrity. So also Augustine. This order consists mainly in the digressions upon each point which relates to the end, so that this shall be kept always in sight. His point being that whatever you're doing, you're ultimately dealing with hearts, not minds. Now the mind is part, and the mind is important, but the mind is not the center. The heart is the center. So you're going to deal with the mind. It's not a false dichotomy, it's not an either or, But even as you're dealing with the mind, never lose sight of the fact that the heart is the main thing and the heart is the definitive thing. Okay, that's as good a place as any to end. There's the assertion, undoubtedly with some controversy in our minds, made by Pascal. We'll get Craif's analysis and we'll get our own analysis next week. The Lord be with you. We keep not getting very far. I hope you're enjoying it, though. I am. I think it's interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say this. Let's prepare 32 through 43, because that'll just take us to the break. I mean, you know as well as I do, the chances of us accomplishing that are pretty darn low. But that way we'll just leave that as kind of the standing unit that we can say we've read through.